So how we can protect the endangered species? So we do have the, as I said that if we don't protect those endangered species will extinct. And we do know that in terms of biodiversity, one species extinct, it will bring a disastrous effect onto the entire ecosystem. Okay, so what we want to do here is a practicing, okay, when say about wildlife conservation, we want to protect the wild species as well as the habitats. A lot of people actually have the idea, oh, we protect the species only, but our aim is we want to return them. Once we already protect them, they grow until a certain level of the number already, okay, enough already, then we want to release them to the habitat. But so at the same time, we not only protect the wild species, but we want to protect their environment and habitat as well. So we do have two ways of these conservation. One is called ex situ, another one is in situ. Ex means exit or outside. Okay, so what means ex situ? Ex situ means that the preservation or conservation or component of biological diversity outside their natural habitat. So it means that we capture some of them, we take them to a facility, okay, outside of their natural habitat. So for example, we can conduct the zoo, frozen zoos, frozen zoo, botanical gardens, seed banks. Those are the way we actually conserve a particular endangered species out of their natural habitat. Okay, means inside. Okay, in situ conservation means on-site conservation, where we protect endangered species or animal or plant, okay, in their natural habitat. So what we're going to do here is we need to protect, clean up the habitat itself. For example, we do know that they have alien species there, so we need to remove the alien species from their natural habitat. So this strategy include declaring certain area as a national park. So we do have the marine national parks as well as the terrestrial national parks. Okay, so we have the ex situ and also in situ conservation. Okay. Okay, we start with the zoo and the frozen zoo because these are the things that questions always asked about the effect. Okay, the role of the zoo in terms of the conservation. So basically, what are the role of the zoo? In this case, they provide protections, okay, for endangered and vulnerable species. And not only protects, because we move them from the wild habitat where they have the predator, they face hunting for the humans. So we bring them into this facility, but the number is still low, right? So we do the captive breeding. Okay, captive breeding basically means that we want to increase the number, and with the long-term aim here, the final aim, we want to reintroduce them back to their natural habitat. Okay, we cannot keep all of them, right? Try to imagine if let's say we are so well conserved them, we have millions of them, how are we going to actually keep them in the zoo, right? We want to release them or reintroduce them back to the natural habitat. So it means that we need to build the natural habitat first, okay? So for research purposes, for example, what research? We want to research how to breed them better. We want to research their habitats, their requirement, so that we can build back or restore back their natural habitats. Recreations, definitely. So allows the public to go into the zoo and learn about, okay, where they are from, okay, in terms of their conservation status, whether they are in critically endangered or they are in endangered, okay, and also create the awareness on wildlife conservation through the education. So most of the zoo, they will have certain programs for the kids, okay, or for the family to bring the kids to the zoo and join their educational events so they create awareness. Okay, so captive breeding programs, they breed the endangered species, okay, in the zoo and other facility to build a healthy population of animal, and we reintroduce these endangered species back to the wild. But what are the challenges? Okay, highlight this. When you perform the captive breeding, there are challenges, definitely. So what are the challenges? The most crucial problem with captive breeding of the animal from small population. Let's say, try to imagine, is when you have a very small population, let's say few of them only, and you continue to breed them, it's a form of inbreeding. Can you see that? Okay, it's a form of inbreeding, and toward many generations, inbreeding depression actually take place. Okay, so therefore, the genetic diversity among the captive bred animal is very, very low. It's similar to what we normally do for the cultivated crop plants, right? Or the cattle, we do inbreeding. So the problem here is when their population is small, the genetic diversity, their gene pool is small, okay? And some animals are unable to breed in captivity. Why? Because visitor effect that leads to a change in the animal breeding behavior and the disruption of animal normal reproductive cycle. Okay, because the humans, they come in visit sometimes, okay, we shout, scream, we talk. So this can actually interfere with the normal reproductive cycle. We try to imagine that, okay, when reproduction take place, for you, I mean, for us, you try to imagine that when you have the sexual activity and someone looking at you. Okay, right? So this is the visitor effect, okay? And the missing of social cue and also little choice of the mate as well. So they don't have the choice. Let's say, for example, some zoo for the tiger, lion, they may have one or two of them. So how they actually can choose the mate? So the choice, the choice of mate is not there. And sometimes in certain animal, because rapidly the zookeeper actually clean up the waste, okay, the urine, wash their aerial, okay, and also remove the dung. What will happen here is quickly they remove or clean this waste, they will remove the important order that the signal of the fertility. So means that those hormone, those smell, okay, the signal, the partner that, oh yeah, the female actually is in the reproductive cycle, but the problem here is because of removal of the waste, then they miss out this, okay, signal. Okay, so it's possible to create a suitable habitat sometime for them, so they cannot be returned to the wild. Are you clear? Because sometimes you look at the habitats, you have to make sure there's no predator, okay? And sometimes it's not that because there's no suitable habitat, but you can't release them at all. Why? Because they are too adept to living after being cared in the zoo, so they already so comfortable stay in the zoo, and you release them. They lost a particular skill. For example, how to avoid the predator, how to find the food resources, okay, or how to rear their own young. They already lost that particular skill already. So we won't be able to return that. You try to imagine that if China returned panda back to the environment, I think many people are going to catch the panda and then make it as a pet. Are you clear? Okay, so that is the problem that we, until now, not many animal, the captive bred animal, that successfully we can return them back to the natural habitat. Okay, so just now we talked about few things. Okay, genetic diversity is the one of the main problem here. We don't want to have inbreeding depression. Okay, second is how we want the animal to breed in the captivity. So we do need to what we call this assisted reproduction technique. Okay, highlight this one. Assisted reproduction. So assisted reproduction basically means that how we can help. Okay, so we can help through sperm bank, artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization, embryo transfer to surrogate mother, and also frozen zoo. So what are these basically? Now, because we do know that, okay, the animal. So if we continue to inbreed them, one of the problems is inbreeding depression. But what we can do is we can isolate the sperm bank. Okay. Previously, if we don't use the sperm bank, what we can do? If the zoo are nearby, let's say for example, few zoo, we can transfer our animal from one zoo to another zoo, let them breed, and then send them back. Okay, but this method transporting the animal actually will cause the stress to the animal. In fact, they may not want to breed or what we call this reproduce. Okay, when you transfer one animal, let's say transfer male from one zoo to another zoo. Sometimes the long distance also will cause the huge, it will incur the huge cost to the zoo. So now what we can do, we can actually use a sperm bank. What we can say, do this here is, we can actually collect the sperm, store them, okay, store them, and we can do exchange. For example, we use a sperm of the tiger in Malaysia, okay, the zoo in Malaysia, and then exchange it with the, let's say, for example, the tiger in Thailand, Indonesia, okay, India, okay, different zoo. We can exchange, then we can increase the genetic diversity. Okay, so what's mean a sperm bank here? Sperm bank basically, if we transport the large mammal between them as a part of their captive breeding program, is difficult and expensive also. And most of the time, breeding did not always happen because of the stress. So what we can do, we can collect the semen from the male, check for the sperm activity, wash, dilute them with a medium containing a buffer solution albumin, and we store them in the liquid nitrogen at -196 degrees Celsius. So sperm can be stored. Are you clear? The sperm can be stored. When we store it already, okay, when we store it already, so depends on the reproductive cycle. If yes, then we can actually donate the sperm and we can actually receive the sperm from the overseas. Then we can increase the genetic diversity. But it's sperm cells, right? It's a sperm cell. So if a sperm cell, how we can, because it's not a natural sexual intercourse, right? It's not natural already, sperm already collected. So how we can actually inseminate? So we can do this artificial insemination, or we call intrauterine insemination. So this method also solve the problem of male and female who do not show any courtship behavior or do not mate. Just now we say that, okay, they have a little choice of the mate, so they don't want to mate. If they don't want to mate, then we can actually collect the sperm and then we do the artificial insemination. So this artificial insemination is basically what is the method. Okay, so the semen straw just now, okay, we can receive it from other zoo from different country. Okay, we can put it in the warm water so that activate the sperm. Then put it in this catheter, means something like what call this, a tube, okay, that can transfer the sperm, which inserted into the vagina through the cervix and into the uterus. So this method also called IUI, is intra, okay, uterine, mean inside the uterus. Then we release the sperm cell. So this sperm cell will going to fertilize the ovum. Are you clear? Okay, so this is the method. So when we do this to the natural on heats, the female, but they don't show any courtship, behavior, or follow the hormone treatment so that ovulates at the times of the this is what we call the artificial inseminations. We use a hormone therapy because we can actually stimulate the female to have the super ovulation to produce large number of follicles. So this is artificial insemination. Okay, now what is the disadvantage of the artificial inseminations? One of the problem here is sometimes the female, you only have so little female in this world. In the zoo, you only have one female. Let's say, for example, very, very critically endangered species. Okay, so if you still make this female pregnant, it's the last female, you worry that during the pregnancy, this pregnancy may kill, okay, may endanger this female. So what we're going to do here is, we can actually do, instead of doing artificial insemination and let this last female pregnant, we can actually do IVF and proceed to the embryo transfer to surrogate mother. So what does this mean? So when we do IVF or in vitro fertilization, we collect the oocytes, or means the ovum, from the female. So last female doesn't matter, we still can have this microsurgery or this minor surgery to remove this ovum. And this ovum or oocyte kept in the culture medium and a short time mixed with the semen, and the resulting zygote divide to form embryo, okay, which are cultured for several days and then placed back into the mother. But this mother now, we don't choose back the same mother. We do search for the closely related one, but they are not endangered. Are you clear? So then we transfer this embryo to the surrogate mother. So the original mother can be the source of many offspring now. Because if you try to imagine, if I do it now, they're on risk. They are at risk of the dying because of the pregnancy, right? But now, instead of using back the same species, we can find a closely related one, and then we transfer the embryo, use a hormonal therapy. Then those are not really endangered ones. They can help us to carry the, to become pregnant and carry the fetus for that particular critically endangered species. And the mother, just now we said that the original species can still continue to be treated with a hormone to give us the ovum. Okay, so what is the method here? So the female, they are related but not endangered species are selected, and the female receive the hormonal treatment to prepare them for pregnancy. The embryo are then placed in the females of the different species, but they are closely related. They are same genus. Right? One of the term and conditions, they come from the same genus. Okay, but sometimes you may not have a surrogate mother yet. Okay, it's not available, the surrogate mother. Now we can do what we call the frozen zoo. Well, the frozen zoo basically means that the eggs are fertilized in vitro and then frozen and are stored, right, which are stored at the liquid nitrogen at -196. Okay, now what you need to know here is sperm cells can be freeze. Okay, we can freeze the sperm cells, but egg cells, or what we call the ovum, cannot be frozen. Are you clear? Due to their size. Sperm cells, no problem. When you talk about sperm cell, their size is small. So surface area to volume ratio actually is very high. So when we freeze them at liquid nitrogen, they won't form this, what we call the water crystal. Water crystal is very dangerous to the cells because water crystal can spoil and damage the cell. But when we look at the ovum actually is a relatively very large cell. So this one, if you freeze them at the -196 degrees Celsius, what will happen here is because of the process and the cells, the exposure is very, very low. Because low surface area to volume ratio, what will happen here is during the process of the freezing, it will cause the cells to form, or the water inside the cell to form this, what we call the water crystal. And water crystal actually will damage the membrane and kill the egg cells. But when fertilization takes place, because of the division, they form the embryo. So the embryo actually very small. Okay, so this small embryo now, because instead of one, can I see that? Instead of one, because of the divisions, right? So it forms small cells like this. So these small cells, they have a large surface area to volume ratio. We will be able to freeze them at the liquid nitrogen until we do have the suitable surrogate mother, and we thaw it, and then we transfer to the surrogate mother. So this is called frozen zoo. Okay, understand the concept here, because easy question come out before. What are the assisted reproductions? Okay, so those are the applications and the methods. Okay, so zoo have very important role in terms of research on what? Breeding habitat requirements, and how to increase genetic diversity. Okay. So some of the famous example, one of these is in Chengdu. Okay, Chengdu, giant panda breeding programs. Okay, so you can see that's how they actually breed, and you see in this region. So they actually have a research. They create the habitats for the panda. Okay, and how they actually deal with the panda, okay, transfer them to the new living environments. So in Malaysia, we do have the breeding program also, a few of them. One of these actually is a Sepilo Orangutan Rehab Center. okay, at Sabah. If you have been there before, actually this is quite nice, okay, according to the ones that went there before. So you can see that feeding. So this is one of the problem here. One of the problem when you release them back to the natural habitat, okay, so they may not be able to find the food source, okay. So in fact, in Sepilo Orangutan Rehab Center, they give training. They give training to the orangutans so that they learn a basic, okay, in transitions back into the wild. And this Sepilo Orangutan Rehab Center not only have the captive breeding, but they do also accept those orangutans safe, I mean, by the local people, okay, because sometimes hunting process take place, make them as a pet, okay. So one of these activity they do, they train this orangutan so that one day when release them back to the wild, they do have the basic living skill, okay. Orangutan actually in Borneo Islands and Sumatra face the extinctions or critically endangered due to the deforestation for the palm, the palm oils. Okay, so the oil palms, I mean plantations, the oil palm plantations.